break, there's a lot of people asking Steve, what is the coolest location or place that he's been in his career? And, I think I have 15 different questions asking the same thing. Steve, what is the coolest place you've been so far in your career?
You mean with the Dead Files as far as locations? Or yeah, that's a tough question. I tell you, Alcatraz, to me, was probably the coolest location. Just by the nature of what it is, as prior law enforcement. To me, that was one of the coolest locations we went to. I mean, the Lizzie Borden house, everybody says, that's great. I really, that to me was just another house where murder took place. But Alcatraz, to me, had that great history that movies are made of.
That's great, and that's cool because I wanted to talk to you about the Lizzie Borden. I haven't seen the episode. I'm trying to. I would love to see it, but the fact that I investigated there about 2 weeks ago with Mark, and I found.
I was telling me, yeah.
Yeah, did you find something about the murder? Something that because to me, a lot of people are convinced it was Lizzie, but did you?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, as an investigator, an homicide investigator, it definitely was her, but they messed up the crime scene and the investigation so bad. I mean, it was despicable how bad they messed that crime scene up, and then the axe that they said that she used was not the murder weapon at all. They found flakes of gold leaf in the stepmother's head that used to be wrapped on a brand new axe. That's how they protect it. And she was seen buying an axe literally a few days before the murders, and that came with a gold leaf on it. And that kind of forensic evidence today, by today's standards, she would have been put away for murder. But there are people in that part of the country that are adamant that she didn't do it. And everybody's got their opinion. In my opinion, she did it. I think they messed up the crime scene and the investigation something tragically. They just did a horrible, horrible job on it. They moved the body to take a photo of it.
My goodness.
I'll give you an idea. There's a guy standing next to the body when they're taking a crime scene photo. And they didn't get a crime scene investigator. They got some guy in town that took photographs.
Are you serious? Did they move the body of the mother or Mr. Borden?
Mr. Borden. They moved him so that they can get him into the photo better.
Oh my goodness, my God!
But I was able to. I talked to the actual lawyer that the retrial of her in that case, which was tremendous help. So when we did the investigation there, I wanted to get into the more of the crime scene of it. I got to be the curator of the museum where all the stuff, the artifacts from there are. And, people are very, very, still to this day, very, very passionate about that case. Some say she did it, some say she didn't. And,
It is, and it's a very emotional case. But I just want to share something. I said during during a part of the investigation where I went to the third floor and it seemed very active in that room, and I simply went out there and I said, Lizzie, if it's you or whether it's Bridget or whatever, whether he did it or not, I think that after 110 years, it doesn't really matter anymore. You've earned the right to move on, and it's 110 years ago, even more, and it's time to go. And I just heard, in my ghost box, a voice of a woman saying yes, and at the same time, a voice of a man saying should get going. And they were both on top of each other. I was totally blown away. It was probably one of my coolest piece of evidence I found in all the years I've investigated. And it just proves, that sometimes maybe they're ready to move on, but, they keep asking the same questions over and over again. Why did you do it? Why are you staying here? Why did you kill you? What if she didn't? What if she didn't? And even if she did, it's 110 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard when you go in there, when you go to a location with preconceived ideas of what happened and what you want to ask. See, if I was on a paranormal investigation, I'd be asking very, very different type questions, but I wouldn't be asking on a paranormal level. I'd be asking I would ask on a detective level. I'd ask questions that would, it's kind of like a trick type way of asking questions. It's hard for me to give you an example because I'd have to be in the moment to do it, but like instead of saying, why did you do it? So my question would be, when you killed your father, what was going through your head? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, why did you do it? You automatically with a question like, when you killed your father, you automatically letting them know, I know you did it. I'm just curious, what was going through your head when you did it?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Those are the type of questions I would ask, and depending on the response, it'd be, how you go forward with that. Because if you get a response like, I hated him, now that's an inculpatory statement. You know what I mean? If you got something like that on your recorder, what would that tell you?
Exactly. And sometimes, just a lot of people are not always asking the same questions, but I think that if a place, keeps being investigated over and over and over again, like Bobby Mackey, how can these spirits, feel free to go? And what if it just attracts more? It's like a feeding ground.
Amy hits on that a lot, like kind of like being badgered all the time, like somebody getting in your face all the time, and you not being able to say, just leave me alone. So I guess that's part of it. I understand people's interest in this stuff. I get it. It's not for me. But if it's like anything else, you're a snake hunter. Where do you go? You go where the snakes are. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If you're a bird watcher, where do you go? You go where the birds are.
Exactly.
So you can't blame people that are into this stuff to go to a location where there's going to be activity. And I look at it that way. I don't take it personal. I just, if I'm into seeing dolphins, am I going to go to a zoo to find them? No, I'm going to go out into the water and look for them. So.
It's so true. And when you go investigate a place like Bobby Mackey or Lizzie Borden, or Alcatraz or Penhurst or Eastern State, and then you do private home where nobody ever investigated before, it's different. It's different because they're not used to have people asking them questions, and the results are different, and the goal is, for a lot of people is different because they're like, okay, this is a private home. There's people involved. I should be careful what I ask. And not to get things worse or the activity to worsen, but I think we should have the same kind of way of investigating whether it's a Bobby Mackey or not. Because even though Bobby Mackey's still a bar, people go and drink beer, and
I get a lot of Facebook people asking me, "Oh, you should go to the Bobby Mackey house," and for the same reason. You got legitimate people out here with legitimate problems. I'm not going to waste our time going to a location when 1,000 other people. We have done locations in the past where other teams have been, but we do a very, other TV shows have been, but we do a very, very, very different investigation. So I don't mind doing that because I know we're going to do it our way and the way we do it. I'd rather do, Middle America. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's important for me to really do down-to-earth people that are legitimately having a problem and they have no place to go. We just did this case in Macon, Georgia, where these people were at their wits' end.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I felt so good after the reveal. Obviously, it's bad news because they had activity there and we're trying to figure it out, but it felt so good to help somebody like that and a family like that, I say to myself, this is why because this traveling thing sucks, but when I get to see how we help people and how much they appreciate what we do for them, it just makes it all worth it.
And do you sometimes, Steve, you and Amy keep in touch with the people you've investigated at their place after?
Amy keeps in touch with them afterwards because she works with them in what they need to do for cleaning the place out. I keep in touch just to talk and bullshit and hang out with, I'll visit prior clients if we're in the same area. I just went out for dinner and drinks with an old client from Rockford, Illinois, when we were back there recently. I went to Ybor City over the New Year's to say hello to the family down St. Bay Inn. I'll do that, stuff like that, but it's not on the ghost level. It's just on a friendly level.
You're right, and that's one thing you do private homes like that, because I do from time to time here, and the thing is that you create a bond, because it's almost like
I spend a way lot more time with them than Amy does. Amy only talks to them during the reveal, and then she talks to them afterwards. So I'm spending 14 hours in a day with the entire family that lives there, and talk to them on the phone before you get there, and kind of getting a feel for them in the background. And so I have more of a personal level with them. I mean, not all the clients I'm in touch with, but a lot of them, especially on Facebook now. I mean, I never Facebooked until the show came on, until I started doing television. So it's kind of new to me. But I keep in touch with a lot of my previous clients like that as well.
Which is amazing.
I got to make you laugh, though. I got a thing from MGH Paranormal Society.
Yeah, that's smart.
Steve, turn down your TV. He's an ass. So he said to me a tweet, whatever it is, to turn down my television. So my bad. My apologies. My TV was on.
You can count on Mark for those kind of things. He's a funny guy and a very cool dude. And I'm very lucky to have a good teammate like Mark because he's very involved in the field and very respectful of people. And, the fact that he was with John Tobin, John is a great guy. Was it the first time you met John at the Paris Recon this year, or you've met him before?
No, I had done a benefit for Sandy, Hurricane Sandy.
Okay.
And that's the first. John reached out to me. I'd done a radio show with John earlier, and then he asked me if I'd do this benefit up in upstate New York. And that's when I met John. I hadn't met Mark until we went to the Paracon convention up in Lake George. But I know they were friends. He was friends with John and everything. They worked together. But I tell you, just hanging out with Mark and Warren and those guys, it felt like I knew these guys forever. We just got along really well.
Exactly.
And you know what? And I'm not in the field, per se. I'm just not in the field, but they made me feel very well. I felt very out of place at the convention because, everybody had everything to do with the spirit world, and there was me. You saw at my desk. It was just me and my photographs. I could autograph the people. It was just me and having conversation, so I didn't go there with T-shirts and all the other things. So,
but that's that's what makes you special is that exactly. But you were there to talk to people instead of just sitting at your table trying to sell you stuff. You remind me a lot of Brian Cano because Brian is the guy I respect the most in the field because I called him the hardest working guy on the paranormal field, and you've met Brian. I'm sure even before that because he's everywhere, and that's another guy that talks to his fans and really cares about his fans and is very respectful of everybody. I've never seen him raise his voice or trying to be a smart ass out there. Oh, never. He's a great guy, and I think you and Brian are very alike in your personalities.
Yeah, I mean, I respect. There are some ghost hunters out there that I guess don't do the right thing. I mean, but then again, I don't know what the right thing is with this stuff because I never pretend to know anything about ghost hunting. But when I watched Mark, I was with Mark while we were doing the ghost tour in Lake George in the fort there. And he was very professional and respectful of the way that he did the questioning. And everybody he worked with was very respectful. So for me, watching it live like that was pretty interesting. And, I have the utmost respect for the guys like you and him that do it the right way, I guess. And, the other guys that don't do it the right way, listen, I don't know. I'm not the ghost hunter police, so.
No, that's the thing about being respectful because you're out there trying to get answers, and I always compare our work kind of like to the work you did for 22 years, kind of like a CSI team going out there just document and trying to piece the puzzle together. But at the same time, who am I to go like, okay, now they're gone. I clean the place. I'm not a medium. I wish I had Amy's gifts, but at the same time, I compare what we do to what you did for 22 years, going out there, try to get answers. And, that's one thing I'm also trying to learn more, is digging up more about the history of the house before the investigation and stuff like that. That's something I learned from watching your show because I'm like, if I know so much more, or one of my teammates, and I always like to have one teammate at least to go blind. Most of the time it would be me. So I don't have any preconceived notions of what's going on. Or, like you said, if you know that supposedly you hear Bob, then everything's going to become Bob.
Yeah. I mean, listen, my part of this, and if you would have told me 6 years ago I'd be doing this kind of work, I would have bet my mortgage and my kids' college tuition on it. But, and I get a lot of slack I get a lot of flack rather from guys I used to work with because you were good. You really believe her? You believe this crap? You told the truth, And these guys are real jerk off sometimes, and I fight with them, and I'll be like, you know what? Spend a couple of days with Amy, then talk to me. Just do a case with her, and then talk to me. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
There's proof in the pudding right there. So, and they're like, oh, big shot, you're on TV now. I get that stuff. But, I'm still the same guy I was. I've never changed. This TV thing will never, ever, in 100 years, ever go to my head. I'm still the same guy I was 40 years ago. And, that's something that I just want fans to know I'm never going to change. I'm the same guy. The show ended tomorrow, I'd be the same guy I am today.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that's another thing. You don't need this for a living. You're already out of your career. You're already out, you're doing this out of passion to help people because it's kind of like the same career, but starting in a different way, right? It's the country.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's you being able to keep doing what you did in a different way with, instead of having 50, now you have Amy as your teammate trying to help you in a different way. And that's amazing because, when you look at teams and I wouldn't say compare it directly, but it's kind of like having Mulder and Scully teaming up together, like in the X-Files in the 90s, you had your,
right.
And, You're more of a Scully, and Amy's more Mulder this time around. But I mean, it's kind of the same way. The goal is the same. The goal is trying to piece the puzzle together and help the family move on. Or if there's something there very dangerous, then at least they know. And just the fact that you're there to listen to people who have paranormal experiences, because a lot of times, even I would say a little bit less in 2014 than it would have been like 30 years ago. Then whenever somebody would say there was something paranormal going on, they would probably be taken in mental hospital straight off the bat. And these days, it's almost cool. It's almost like, oh my God, I want to go there. And everybody knows a paranormal investigator. You just look on Twitter or Facebook, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of teams. And sometimes you're like, have you ever guys investigated once? And most of them, no. Just build a website before even one investigation. So yeah, cool nickname, cool team name, cool logo. But have you ever tried it? Have you ever, and what is your goal? Is it to try to help people or just to thrill seeking? Because there's a big difference between investigating and just...
Right, and I think that's where Amy has a problem with some of the ghost hunters. Like, she would never have a problem with you guys or, like, with Mark and everybody. But the thrill seekers that try to antagonize and stuff like that, I guess. I don't get why you would walk into a room and start yelling and screaming at somebody that you can't see. My brain, my little brain that I got, I got no problems with living people. I'm not going to start screaming into a room that's got nobody there, that I can see. So for me, when you do it the way you guys do it, I guess it's the only, and there should be like, I wish there was like the way detectives are taught when they first become detectives how to do an investigation or, the training course. Maybe there should be a training course for the right way to do this.
Yeah, it should, yeah, because in a way, I don't think there's a clear pattern to follow because everybody has a different style, and I always said, I have respect for people who do things their own way, but, even when I watch Ghost Adventures, the season 1, and I compare it now to season 10, it's a big learning curve. Zach has changed a lot, and even to this day, he would admit that in season 1, most of the time he was acting he was provoking and stuff like that. And to this day, he's saying, yeah, he regrets, and that's why they started doing the aftershocks, going back a little bit like what you do with your show.
Yeah, you got to respect him for that, for recognizing maybe he was doing something wrong. Most people could be arrogant about that, so you got to respect him for the fact that he was willing to say, I shouldn't have did that. Some people are just stubborn and too egotistical to even make that statement. You know what I mean?
Exactly, and the fact that he's surrounded by great teammates like Nick and Jay Walsley, and that's important to have a good team around you. And it's important to have different kind of investigators, like you said before, because if everybody's a big believer, it's good to, like my friend Shane Pittman, in Georgia, one of his teammates, Jonathan, is a total skeptic. And I mean skeptic, even after Bobby Mackey and all hell broke loose, he's still a skeptic, and I respect him for that. And it's good to have Jonathan on the investigation because, Jonathan will challenge you. Like, are you sure? And sometimes you almost feel like, what does it take? but that's okay, you know. That's okay. You know, I respect that. I respect that people, you know, have different approach and not the same beliefs. And that's what keeps, you know, pushing us to try to be better all the time.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. I mean, you should only grow as you're doing what you do. I mean, if you can't learn something new every time you go to work, then you're doing something wrong. I mean, I'll the first one to admit that if you can't learn something new out of everything, when I was at work like that, you know, you become a homicide detective overnight. You don't. You do it by learning and honing your skills. But you need to be able to learn something new every day. Once you start thinking you know everything, come on, hang it up. Do yourself a favor and just don't come out of your bedroom.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. You know, the day you start, I think the day you think you know everything is the day you start you know, it's the end. Because, you know, you can't know everything. And everything changes so fast these days. You know, you could be like, oh my God, you know, I got a good handle on Twitter. And the first thing you can know, 2 years from now, Twitter could be gone and replaced by Google Plus or whatever. So, you know, and I remember here, BlackBerry was the hot thing. You know, my boss used to run around with BlackBerry. Now BlackBerry is almost out of business and everybody's got a Samsung or an iPhone. And 10 years down the road, you know what's going to be? Yeah. It's the same thing in the paranormal field. You know, back then, an orb was a ghost. And now everybody knows it's dust. And a key to it these days is a ghost walking in front of you. And now we're starting to realize that there's electromagnetic fields, not just electricity. It could be triggered by the earth, whatever. It could be solar flares and stuff like that. So yeah, even to this day, we're learning more about the gear that we have. And I would, you know, that's the thing. You know, if you rely only on your gear, you know, then you have a problem. I would say that the best piece of equipment that we have on an investigation, and I'm sure Amy would agree, is ourselves, is our sixth senses.
110%. Like all the tools that detectives have at their feet now, the computer checks and everything being on video, and you know, being able to track somebody because of credit card imprints all over the country or telephone cell sites, stuff like that. That's all great. But until you actually physically talk to somebody and get that one piece of information you're not going to get from a freaking computer, that's where the human skills come in. And unfortunately, the new generation today, you see 5 kids sitting at a table and they're all on their phones. Nobody's talking to each other.
It's true.
That concept went out the window, apparently. I didn't get the memo on it, but it did. So, actually talking to each other.
It's so true, you know, but that's the thing, you know, going back to New York this way. I just posted a picture, you know, on my Facebook page yesterday. You'll be laughing. You know, those old phone booths, you know, in New York City, they don't exist anymore anyway. I'm sure, you know, there must be something to protect them, you know, the old phone booths, you know, I think that's the only...
They're in the bar I go to in Manhattan. There are 2 of them in there.
I was lucky to find one, and I just took a picture of it, you know, with me making it look like I'm talking on the phone, and I'm like, oh, you know, old school, you know, I love old school, you know, I love old school, and I had a podcast with Scott Grunwald a few weeks ago who investigates with basically nothing, you know, compass, and that's about it. And I'm like, my God, you know, I think old school is kind of being back in new school these days. And that's a good thing. People realize that you don't need to have the up to gear, you know, like Ovilus 15, you know,
right.
And I have nothing against, I have a lot of gear and I love to use it, but I mean, you don't need to have everything up to date, you know. Oh, you don't have the new PSB 7 now. I have PSB 2022. Yeah, I just use my old Ghost box for 5 years, and I have good results with it. Why would I change it? You know.
Don't fix it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I was. I always chat with the fans that private message me, and you know, sometimes I'll have 10, 12 conversations going on at once when I'm actually at my computer trying to interact with fans. And I get, well, geez, Steve, you're a real talker. You know, because I kind of give the 1-word answer or the 2-word answer. You know, for me, if I'm in person, I'll talk all day long. But, you know, I'm just not this texting type of guy. So I laugh when they're like, oh, geez, you're a real talker. I mean, I'm a real talker, just not on texting, you know.
Exactly.
So fans out there that get upset with me with the 1-word responses, 2-word responses, now you know what.
And you know, we have Glenn talk about the phone. I miss the old days when you left the house and the damn phone stayed in it.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Now there's no, I remember about a few weeks ago, somebody was texting me and I was not answering. I was getting mad, like, okay, my cell phone was off. Is it possible I don't know, I just don't feel like talking on the phone. I'm doing my groceries or whatever.
I tell you the truth. People get impatient because everything is so instant right now. And if I'm on a conversation with you right now and we're talking and I don't respond to a text message I got an hour ago, guess what? I'm busy. I can't respond. Well, I can multitask, but maybe I don't want to multitask right now, and maybe it's more important that I concentrate on who I'm talking to right now instead of all over the place.
Exactly, and you're right. And okay, so why is he retweeted me or favorited my tweet, or I sent a message 15 minutes ago? Why? Because people are busy, and just the fact that you take the time to answer people, it's amazing. I've said it before, but I want to say it again. Steve, you're one of the only people in the field, and I follow a lot of people and that really talk to their fans all the time, and that's something that's going to keep you, even if the show was to end, I would say 2 years from now, you would still be able to go to conventions or whatever, and people will remember you because people remember the people that matter to them and people who were genuine with them. I used to drive the WWE wrestlers around in Montreal about 15 years ago, and I remember guys that are gone sadly now, like Kerry Von Erich and the Big Boss Man, and a lot of the Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, in their early 40s. A lot of these guys would. I remember sharing stories and being, in the room with them, because we would rent a hotel room and there'd be 20 guys drinking beer. The Undertaker was there, and I was like, my God. But the last thing in the world they want to talk about when they're off is wrestling. You talk about football, you can talk about anything, but don't talk about wrestling. That's what they do 24/7. So when
I ran into a fan at the hotel in Macon, Georgia. He came up to me. He's a big guy. He works for Home Depot, great guy. They talked about how much him and his girlfriend love watching the show, and he asked me every question there could be about the show. And I answered him, but I would rather talk about football than the show. But I understand people's curiosity, and especially about Amy. Everybody's got these answers they want about, what about Amy? And I can't answer for her, and I never try to. My opinion is she's amazing. I'm lucky to work with her, and I should be, grateful I have such a gifted partner to do what I do. But don't ask me about dark spots and bulbs, and I don't know.
But that's the thing. If I want to know a lot about Amy, I will ask Amy to come on my podcast. That's the thing. I have a big problem with people having podcasts and they talk about themselves all the time, or they have a guest and they talk about everybody else but the guest that is on the podcast. It's like, okay, why bother having the guy on the podcast if you're not going to talk about him or his work?
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I get a little nutty when people say, "Can you ask Amy this?" I'm like, she has her own Facebook page, and this is it, and it's just, if you don't have a question for me, I'll answer questions about best I can about what I do. But as far as what Amy does, I just refer them to her page because I don't, I can't answer for who answers their questions or what, but I try to answer my questions that I can. Some people ask me, "Can you ask Amy this? Can you ask Amy that?" I'm like, no, she's got enough going on without me asking the questions for a third party,
Exactly. And I'm sure it's the same thing for her, that sometimes people will be like, "Can you ask Steve this?"
Anybody would ask her about me. There's nothing really interesting about me. Other than maybe I can help you try to research your house or something, but
it's your personality that just makes the whole difference. Because
I got the gift of gab, and I just like having fun. We hung out. You know how I am. I just like have a few laughs and enjoy life while I can, because it's too short. That's for sure.
You're right. Because we only go around once, and life is so short that if you start taking yourself too seriously, you're in trouble. I did a lot of bodyguard work for movie stars on TV set, on locations in New York for film. The company I worked for part-time. And the guys you thought were going to be real idiots, actors or actresses, turned out to be unbelievably great. And then the ones you thought were going to be great turned out to be the biggest assholes on the planet. So it's, I've learned from just watching what they do, how they treat other people. I would never, ever in a million years do something like that.
It isn't, nobody's better than anybody else. How dare you yell at a production assistant because you don't have enough milk in your coffee or something like that? I mean, how dare you? And I see guys screaming because they didn't have their wheat juice or something like that, or some crap. Like, are you kidding me? Are you joking? And I have nothing, I'm sitting there bodyguarding, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You're yelling at this poor kid because you don't have your wheat germ juice, whatever the hell you want? I mean, come on, guy. Give me a break. That's just, I'm not built that way, so the crew loves me because I make my own coffee.
Yeah. My God.
I try to anyway.
And Steve, before we end the podcast, because I've had a lot of people asking me this question, and Kimmy's asking on Twitter. I asked the question before, if during the walkthrough with the client you've ever felt anything paranormal. But now she's asking during the whole investigation, have you ever felt anything that you couldn't explain? You told me no, not during the walkthrough, but even though during the whole thing you never felt anything as of now?
I get that question a lot. I have never, ever had any kind of experience or feeling or, I guess nothing. I mean, sometimes I have a cold. I mean, my allergies may be acting up, but I don't feel anything. I don't feel a heaviness. I don't feel anything. I'm just, I don't know. I'm sorry to say. I guess people are dying for me to have some kind of an experience. I don't think Amy's pretty sure I'm never going to have an experience. So if anybody knows, I'm pretty sure she would. I'm just probably close to it. And also, my brain doesn't work like most people's brains. My mind's going 1,000 different places while I'm doing my investigation. I'm thinking about questions. I'm reading the person. I'm looking at a million things in the house, seeing what maybe could be causing some stuff.
Exactly. You're so focused on it. You have so many things to think about. Exactly.
So, and when I do, I'll let everybody know if I have something. But please, fans, not hold your breath waiting for me to tell you about an experience I had.
But there's some paranormal investigators, they've been investigating for years that never had a paranormal experience in their lives. It took me, I would say the first one I had took me about 2.5 years, before I had something that was like, oh yeah, now I believe. It took a long time. Some people think, you go onto location and bam, something happens straight off the bat. No, it can take hours and hours and hours and hours. And sometimes you can come back home thinking you found nothing and looking back at your tapes. Oh my God, I missed this. Or sometimes you thought something happened. Then you look back on your tape and you're like, oh no, finally, I was wrong. And that's the thing about it. You never take anything for granted. And it's always great to film everything because, to be able to if you really found something or you thought you heard something and then you realize, it was your stomach.
Yeah, it's funny. We were in the Santa Fe prison doing I was interviewing the client, and it's kind of echoey in there because everything is, it's a big building. And, of course, I had one of those Tex-Mex, and my stomach was making such noises that the sound guy was like, I think I just heard something. And it was my stomach. It was nothing paranormal. It was just a bad breakfast.
But it happens a lot. It's important to tag everything. And that's one thing about investigating. It's not just being out there and asking questions. Sometimes you could be there for hours. And I remember Brian Kano telling me sometimes the best questions is the question you never ask.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just being quiet,
Exactly. And is this something that you learned through your years of investigating as a police detective that sometimes,
you got to learn to be a good listener. You got to learn to not interrupt somebody's flow of talking. You'd be surprised what people say when you just let them talk. And silence is really good because what will happen is somebody's going to feel a need to say something. And in the detective world, when a perpetrator feels the need to say something, it may be something really good and inculpatory. So you got to learn that patience, and you got to learn to keep your mouth shut. Which I learned the hard way coming up. I cut people off while I was talking to them, and I learned from other detectives. Listen, you can't do that. You got to let these mutts talk. When they talk, they'll tell you something that will hurt them in the investigation. So you'll see me on TV. A lot of times I'll just be listening, and you'll see the looks I give. But, I just listen intently to what they're saying. And I'm not only just listening to them, I'm reading them.
Exactly.
So, like you said, silence is actually a good thing.
It is. And finally, it's already time to wrap up. We've been talking for an hour and a half, and I just realized, we could talk for. We have to do another one, Steve. Whenever you have time, it could be next year. But I would love to have you back on the show because there's a lot of.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Tom. I really do, and your support of the show as well. And if I can just take a second to thank every fan out there and let them know how much I really appreciate them. Without you guys, there's no Dead Files. And I really, really appreciate all your support and your comments on Facebook and Twitter. And please, if you ever see me on the street, I'm not a bad guy. You come up and say hello. Just don't bother me when I'm eating.
Yeah.
I'm only kidding. You can come up when I'm eating.
Steve, I met you once in person, and hopefully, we're going to be able to meet, and even maybe investigate one time. It would be incredible because you're not, in Florida. My dad has a house over there, so I go to Florida very often. But, I really enjoyed talking to you. And looking forward for the next one. And I want to say thanks to everybody who listened and interacted with us. I know it's 11 a.m., so we're going to have a lot of people listening back to the version that I'm going to put on Twitter today, because a lot of people were at work, and I know that some people were even at work listening to us, probably. So that's.
Yeah, I got a lot of that on my Twitter as I was listening, as I was going through the Twitter feed. I said, "Oh, people are listening at work. I hope their boss don't see it."
Exactly. So don't lose your jobs. you can listen anytime. I'll post the links to the podcast. And Steve, thanks so much for your time. And I know you're busy right now filming Dead Files episode, and I wish you luck and wish you success on the future investigations you're gonna have.
Oh yeah. By the way, I didn't get a chance to tell you real quick. We did get picked up for another 13 episodes for next season. So after we finish filming. This season, we'll be picked up for another 13 episodes for the following 2015.
Oh, that's
for the fans and for the Dead Files.
I'm very happy to hear it, Steve, and hopefully, you're going to get picked up for other ones after that. But that's a lot of work coming up your way, and really hopeful that we're going to meet some of these days again and be able to investigate together. I really appreciate you as a friend, and you're one of the best people I've ever met in my life, and I'm really thankful for Twitter for that.
Well, I appreciate your time, Tom. It was my pleasure to actually meet with you and everybody else that time we did meet. And like I said again, I appreciate the support that you give the show and to me as well.
Well, thank you very much, Steve, and thanks everyone for listening. And looking forward for the next time.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you, Steve.